So I just want to talk about this. I talked about it back in the day, back in 2020. I remember talking about it. And it was the most remarkable thing ever. Imagine the government saying to a company that owns revenue in the country, right, fair enough. You'd be like, fair enough. That we don't want your taxes. We're going to go to the European court to fight that we're not going to take 13 billion euro off you in taxes. This is Apple, just to say. The Irish government actually, with a straight face, said we don't want the money off you, the 13 billion that you owe in taxes for being here. With a straight face, they said that. And OT was like, yes. And they were all like, oh, ho, ho, ho. And then they went to the European Court, and obviously there's probably spent millions of the Irish government to get to the European Court, right? And the European Court ruled at the time that they don't really have to take the money. The Irish government don't really have to take the money. So they spent probably millions on lawyers and stuff like that for fuck always. Excuse my language, but that's basically it. So it's came up again because obviously they have obviously making huge bucks here because they pay no tax. Literally, they don't even pay probably 5 cents in tax because the government basically. You know yourself, they get a few brown envelopes and they're looked after well, so there's not never said. But my point is, you know, the 13 billion euro, not even 13 million. You might be like, oh, what's the point of getting 13 million? But 13 billion euro, think about that for a second. Think how many houses you could build, or what you could do with that money if you said, look, we'll take the money and stuff like that. Like, it's come up again that they've made a huge amount of money, Apple, in the last year, and they have more money there, basically. So every year they're not paying tax. So they're nearly getting 13 billion they should be given to the country every year in taxes, which to Apple and Google and to Twitter and it's just basically a drop in the ocean. Like, it's not even I said to me, like, if they were in France or other countries, they'd be paying 130 billion, a year in taxes. Like, they would whack them in taxes. The only reason why they were here, we have to be totally honest, is because it's a tax haven, basically. You pay very little tax. They probably only pay less than a million a year here. And the majority of the money probably goes to the politicians' back pocket just to keep it that way. The usual stuff. What happens here. I won it on the horses, they would say, if anybody questioned them on it. But again, the mainstream media in this country won't question it because obviously they'll give a few bob to them, and it's all let go very quietly. It's all done behind the scenes, you see. Conspiracy theory 2.0, but it is true. Like, let's be fair. And this is my point. Like, as an ordinary Joe, I pay my tax every day I go to work. You pay tax to the government. Anything you buy, you pay tax to the government. And they won't make an exception for an Irish citizen, or an Irish business. Like the small shops around Cavan here, they provide local goods. We keep people in jobs, local people in jobs, and they help the local community, local economy, and stuff like that around Cavan. And they show us hell if they sell to the Irish government with the revenue. If the revenue kept knocking, looking for money off them, and they said we can't afford to pay the taxes for this year to the government. What would the revenue do? What would the government do? They come along with a big solicitor and bring them to court to look for them. The revenue will probably shut down their business and say you're not allowed to do business because you can't afford to pay the tax bill. They simply wouldn't they wouldn't play favourites with an ordinary person that's working a small rural shop in County Cavan. They wouldn't play favourites. As simple as that. They'd be looking for 100,000 probably off him a year to have his shop open. Like, they would probably skin him alive, basically. The only Irish Joe that's working hard, that's local people employed, local man employed, local woman with a family, and that's all they have. And basically, the grandfathers and the fathers owned the shop before, and the government just don't care, and they just tax them to hell and to back. And my point is, it's not fair on Joe, and it's not fair on Joe and Paddy and Mary that one's shop, right? The one's local shops around the country, and the big boys in Dublin basically get off with it, and they get off scot free, and they're allowed to keep all the money in tax, and they pay little to nothing. Even though, like, just to say, Apple, Google, and TikTok and stuff have big data centers in Dublin that literally use up the energy of a whole city, nearly of a whole country. If you add them all together, they use the energy, and they probably pay no electricity bill. The government probably paid for them, wouldn't you know it? Because let's be fair, they pay very little here. Like, they pay literally nothing. Like, but think for a second what I just said at the beginning of this, that the government rejected them taking 13 billion euro off them and went to the European courts in Brussels about it. not to take 13 billion euro off them. It's not even like it's not, they're not, basically the money that they were given to the government, they were going to get, was in taxes, basically, for them operating in the country, the day-to-day running. And the government's just like, no, we don't want it. Like, try and process that for a second. And they probably spent multi-millions on bringing to the European Court, the Irish government. And you're just like, what are you doing? Like, it's beggars belief, really. It is really beggars belief that they do this. But again, it's all 2023.